just gonna check to see if the streaming is going. Okay, it is. So I like doing this live in one take. And first off, I want people to know that it's a spoiler review. So there's going to be a lot of spoilers. You'll see that it is. There are spoilers in the title. So just make sure that you're not going to listen in. If you are, I assume you've watched it, or you don't care if you get spoilers. All right, so this is my first official movie review. It's going to be different. I'm not going to give it any stars, thumbs up. I'm just going to give my thoughts. I think what's important about Star Wars: The Last Jedi, it is Episode 8, and a part of a trilogy of 7, 8, and 9, following The Force Awakens. Now, I think this movie is true, what people say, that it is going to be pretty divisive, and if you look at Rotten Tomatoes, you're going to see how divisive it is. It's definitely, it's right now, it's critically reviewed as being one of the best Star Wars movies, but when you look at the audience score, it's hovering right near the 50% mark. So, what are my thoughts? Well, first, it was a fun movie to watch on the surface, but once you start kind of thinking about it, it starts to kind of fall apart. And one thing I love about Star Wars movies, at least the ones that I really love watching, is the watchability factor. You're gonna just watch it over and over again. I don't know how many times I watched Star Wars: A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. At least 100 times. I'm saying multiple hundreds of times I've probably seen it. Just sometimes just playing it, leaving it on the background, or I just want to fall asleep, just play it. It's so ingrained, and there's just a lot of things that I use from it. I mean, I pretty much, if I watched it, I could just quote every line. And it's not the best lines of movies ever, but they're memorable. When I play video games with my brother, I remember back maybe 15 years ago, and I would make Star Wars quotes during the game, and something like, we're playing. Okay, never mind. I'm getting off track. Let's get to movie reviews. Our rankings: Empire Strikes Back is number 1. New Hope, number 2. Number 3 is Return of the Jedi. Number 4 is Force Awakens. This is when the bar starts getting lower. Number 5, Rogue One. Last Jedi fits as number 6. So if you kind of have the same ranking as I do, you might find it the same thing that I'm finding as far as The Last Jedi. So let's move on. All right, the first one is continuity. If you're expecting to find answers from The Force Awakens, you're not. If you're going to, your expectations are not going to be met. If you had theories of who certain characters are or what Luke was up to, you're going to be disappointed. It's interesting because it would be like The Empire Strikes Back, with the ending that they had in Return of the Jedi. What they end up doing is saying, oh, Han Solo's dead. He was in carbon freeze. So where's Chewie and Lando Calrissian going? Oh, they're just going to Forest of Moon of Endor. It's like, okay, that was all that stuff that went on with Han Solo. Okay, great. So it's a little bit disappointing. So a lot of people say it's just kind of like F you to J.J. Abrams. As far as I don't know what's going on between J.J. and Rian Johnson, the director of Last Jedi and director of Force Awakens. Okay, so let's go into the time issues. So in the original trilogies and even the prequels, there's usually a certain amount of time that passes. Not this time. This time, The Last Jedi picks up exactly, maybe exactly where The Force Awakens takes off. So if you get on the island with Rey and you're on the island with Luke, that just puts off right from the get-go. as far as the Jedi Order and First Order and the Rebel fleet, it might be like a day. You don't really know exactly how much time passes, but Kylo Ren and I forgot his name, General Hux. They're on a starship. Kylo Ren's all fixed up, so you don't see what happens from the point where Kylo Ren's beat up and General Hux is told to get Kylo Ren. None of that leads up to where they are at the start of The Last Jedi. Finn wakes up and he's healed. There's basically nothing wrong with him. So it just picks up right where it goes on. It's not that big of a deal. You just don't get a character development that occurs, and that's a different thing, which I'll talk about later. So about the continuity, the lightsaber. Now the entire MacGuffin, I guess you could say, a device that just kind of drives along the plot of The Force Awakens, was the search for Luke Skywalker. That was pretty much the entire plot. That was what people were searching for. And in The Force Awakens, Luke Skywalker left a map to his location. And you notice that Poe Dameron, who was charged with finding the location of Luke's whereabouts, was given that mission directly by Princess Leia, or General Leia now. And so you know he's an important character to be entrusted with this task. And there's a reason for it. So what was the reason for Luke? Why were they looking for him? Most likely because they needed help. So when you get to and part of the mystery about Force Awakens is the lightsaber that was found in I forget her name, was found in that cantina scene in a kind of empty box, and it was calling to Rey. So why was it calling to Rey? What were all those voices? What was the flashback scene? What was the purpose of her having the lightsaber? Anyways, the entire reasoning for that, you're not going to get any answers. First scene off the bat with Rey and Luke. Luke just tosses the lightsaber when Rey hands him the lightsaber. So that was it. A little disappointing, but you're going to be like, okay, fine. They're just going to move on with it. So if this was kind of like the way Rogue One is, like where they don't have a specific big part within the trilogy, it's just kind of like a offshoot, I think this would have been fine. But you know, as like a second part of a trilogy, not so good. So I'll get to that in the end. All right, Snoke. So who's Snoke? Snoke is pretty powerful. You'll note that in this movie he's very powerful. He's probably more powerful than Emperor Palpatine, who's Darth Vader. He's incredibly powerful, and everyone wants to know why and who is he? Where did he come from? What type of training did he provide Kylo Ren as before The Force Awakens started? And he was going to finish Kylo Ren's training, but you don't even see that extra training. And then what happens is, from a tricky maneuver that Kylo Ren has while this all-seeing Snoke is giving his monologue, Kylo Ren kills Snoke. Yeah. Sorry, I have to stop. Kind of take breaks, but I need to hurry on this review. All right. So Rey's lineage from The Force Awakens, she's always wanting to stay on Jakku to wait for her parents. She wants to know who her parents are. I think it's even said in The Force Awakens, I'll tell you all about your parents. I think that's Princess Leia that says that. Anyways, there's a lot of little hints given of who Rey's parents are. And then you find out who Rey's parents are. It's nobody. They're just some druggies that ended up dying in the desert. I mean, this this is real. I'm not making stuff up. This is what happens. Knights of Ren. So why is Kylo Ren named Ren? Why are there other, I guess you could say, knights, because that's what they call them in Force Awakens? Why are there's other students? And it's even mentioned in Last Jedi that he at least turned half the students. So what happened to those students? You don't know. There's no mention of Knights of Ren. And Kylo Ren is always called Kylo Ren. You never hear anyone call him just Kylo. So there's an important part as far as the Ren part that's never touched upon. Okay, so this movie splits into 3 different plot lines. The first plot line is Rey's story arc with Luke, and Rey's story arc with Kylo Ren, and then kind of ends with her joining back with the rebels. The second plot line is the Rebel escape. Now, this is very similar if you're a big fan of the new Battlestar Galactica, or at least the reboot. There was a part where the Cylons are chasing. I'll get to that later. They're chasing. All right, I'll get to that later. So, and then the third one is the Finn and Rose plot line, which pretty much ties into the Rebel escape plot line. And that is a plot line that was not necessary, but we'll get to that again later. All right, so Rey's plot line. She meets up with Luke. You know that from The Force Awakens. She gives him the lightsaber. He tosses it away. She wants to get trained by him. He refuses. He eventually trains her, and maybe it's like 2 or 3 lessons. It's very minimal. She ends up being able to mind meld and talk with Kylo Ren. She's able to see where he's at. He's not able to see where she's at. And then she leaves and ends up going to the ship that Kylo Ren is on with Snoke. She's about to be killed by Snoke. And then Kylo Ren kills Snoke, and then they both fight Praetorian guards, and they have a little bit difficult time, but they end up prevailing. I mean, these two are supposedly the most powerful Force users, or at least potential-wise, and they have trouble with Praetorian guards, which they don't have any Force powers. You notice that, but they don't even use any Force powers to defeat them. It's just their lightsabers, so it's the closest thing you can have to a hand-to-hand battle, an actual hand-to-hand battle in this movie. There are no lightsaber scenes in this Star Wars movie. First time you ever see a movie in a Star Wars movie with no lightsaber fights, where it's lightsaber to lightsaber contact. So they win. Kylo Ren asks, or kind of invites Rey to join him and rule the galaxy together. And nothing happens. All that happens is you skip to Rey landing on that rebel outpost and then helping them leave a cave to escape. That's Rey's plotline. There's no character development for her, and I'll get to that later. So there's the rebel escape plotline, like I was mentioning earlier. It's a lot like Battlestar Galactica, where the Cylons are chasing the fleet, and they just keep following them, and they don't know how. Well, in Star Wars, it's the same thing. They can't get away, and they're able to track them through hyperspace. And there's a new weapon, a new ship called the Dreadnought, and that's presumably at the beginning, that's the big weapon that they ended up either trying to escape or destroy. And I'll get to that part with Poe later. But basically, they figure out which ship has the tracking device, and they're trying to figure a way how to get that tracking device disabled so they can escape. So that's kind of where the Finn and Rose plotline occurs. So the Rebel escape plotline is just, okay, so they can't just keep, using light speed away or hyperspeed to run away, because they'll just be followed and they're gonna run out of fuel. So they're just slowly moving, far, just normal speed, normal cruise ship speed, to just keep at a distance with the ships, because the short range fighters won't be able to really do any damage. The lasers won't be able to do any damage, but the First Order are there to just, they'll eventually run out of fuel. They don't mention how the Empire just gets refueled either. I mean, bigger ships, you would think that they have more fuel expense, but I guess it doesn't happen that way in space, which is kind of funny, because let's not get into the science of Star Wars. Finn and Rose plotline, a lot of people are going to feel the same way. They didn't think it was needed. The Canto Bight scene, the chase, the entire arc of Finn and Rose. If Rose is a pretty decent character. Finn doesn't really, again, do much of character development. There is a little bit of character development for him in the end, and that was okay, but then it gets ruined. So I'll talk about that later. So the entire plotline for them is they're working with Poe in order to find this code cracker and try to disable that tracking device on one of the First Order ships. And they pretty much failed, really. Alright, character development. I'm just going to go through one by one. I'm going to go talk about Rey, Finn, Poe, Kylo Ren, and Luke. So let's see how I'm doing on time. Okay, about 12 minutes. Hey, Garner, how's it going? Alright, so Rey. So she needs training. At least that's what she wants. Except she does kind of battle Luke a little bit. She got hit by one of Luke's sticks. I can't remember. And then she eventually beats him. And that's it. Her training's done, I guess. So people are saying she's a Mary Sue, and then this movie pretty much confirms it. There is no character development of Rey. Rey, as she starts out at the end of Force Awakens, she's exactly the same at the end of Last Jedi. There's really no difference. Power-wise, you don't see any difference. That's Rey. Okay, Finn. At the end of Force Awakens, he got beat up by Kylo Ren. He's in this suit, or this medical device thing. And, well, what happens? He's totally fine. He's 100% healed. He's able to walk, run, whatever you want. And the first thing he wants to do is find Rey. And he's going to run away to try to find her. And eventually, Rose finds him trying to escape. She stops him. And then they figure out, well, they can't escape anyway because they're being tracked. And so he joins Rose's cause to go ahead and escape, and plans with Poe in order to do that. At the end, Finn is actually, as they fail with Rose, they get back to the Rebel outpost, and in one last fight, they go in these little ships and they on land and try to kill out this big cannon. That way, that at least allows the resistance to just survive a little bit more, to escape by time or whatever. And he's about to make that ultimate sacrifice. And well, Rose stops him, but they're safe. They're just way closer to those big AT-ATs, and they end up being okay. Because, well, you'll see. So Poe is part of the biggest plot holes. He's an important character. You notice that in The Force Awakens, because he's tasked with the big task of finding Luke directly by Princess Leia. You would think that they trust him enough. And in this movie, the way that he acts or reacts to when Princess Leia becomes unconscious, who's going to take over command of the Resistance, he kind of perks up because he believes it's him. But the thing is, Leia demoted him, and out comes the new leader of the Resistance, Admiral Holdo. He doesn't know who really she is. No one knows because she's just first interest, no mention of her whatsoever in Force Awakens, and they follow her lead. And Leia and her had this whole escape plan kind of before Poe kind of went his own way to defeat the Dreadnought. He called upon these bombers, and these bombers, oh man, bombers in space. Not exactly. I mean, I know there were bombers in Empire Strikes Back, but this is a little bit different. So Poe is not told what the plan is. He kind of like, he's got this earpiece communication device with Princess Leia. Princess Leia says, hey, do this. He goes, no. And then he commands the fighters and bombers to go ahead with their attack with the Dreadnought. That doesn't stop General Leia of ordering the rest of the fighters to stand back and not follow Poe's orders. But General Leia goes ahead and lets him do what he does. A lot of lives are lost, and then when Poe comes back, she chastises him and demotes him. It's like, you are the leader, you are the general of the Resistance. You know, you don't do a communications through Poe to the rest of the fighter fleet. I'm sorry. You have communications to everyone in your fleet. So she could have had an order. So these are like these plot lines that plot holes that I'll probably talk about later. I might continue this later. I might only have like 8 minutes. All right, Kylo Ren. He's pretty much the same as far as character development at the end of, maybe even the beginning of Force Awakens and the end of Last Jedi. He kills Snoke. He gets beat. I mean, in the Force Awakens, he gets beat by Rey. So what exactly is the threat aside from him commanding the entire First Order? Rey could pretty much stop him at any point. She could have stopped him after he killed Snoke. So we don't know what's going on, where it's going to go. He's the leader that got beat already by a good guy. Good guy can beat him at any time, but doesn't. So, yeah. Don't think about this movie if you want to like it. Just don't think about it. Luke ends up being a hermit, just like every other Jedi that runs away, I guess. He failed in his training with Ben Solo, sorry, not Kenobi, and had this very, saw what was in store for Ben Solo, saw his going to the dark side, and so was going to go kill Kylo Ren, Ben Solo, in his sleep one night. Just that one thought. He activated his lightsaber. He thought about it, then he, shut off the lightsaber. But then Ben Solo woke up and struck him, and that was the only. Actually, that's the only time where you see lightsabers make contact with each other in this movie. So that's Luke. That's not really Luke. Even Mark Hamill says that's not Luke. Everyone that doesn't like this movie doesn't think that's Luke. But Mark Hamill's performance in this movie is great. I loved it, but it wasn't Luke. Luke knew that he couldn't defeat his father or the Emperor, but went anyway because there's a chance that Darth Vader, who's the most horrible person in the galaxy, killing everybody, there's a small seed of good in him, and he was going to go ahead and sacrifice his life for just a chance that his father would turn back to the light side. And this is the Luke he turns out to be, where he sees this tiny seed of what Ben Solo could be and just wants to kill him in his sleep. No. Horrible writing, horrible. Alright, plot holes, there's just so much. Oh man, I don't even know how much time we have. Okay, 4 minutes. Plot holes. I mentioned the Poe Uh, General Leia, Poe just doesn't get told what the plan is. General Leia could have held back all the fighters so they could have survived and they could escape once Poe did what he needed to do. General Holdo doesn't tell his plan to Poe, her plan to Poe, so Poe goes off on his own, ends up almost doing a mutiny until General Leia wakes up and stops him. Bombers in space, gravity. It just drops. It would be nice if they were like shot out, like something special with bombers, I guess, in space. But this isn't really a science type of sci-fi. It's sci-fi fantasy, okay? But come on. There's a new element of destroying a big ship using light speed. It's never been done before. Now, it's like why wasn't it done before? Why didn't they just destroy all these big ships where Vader was on it? It's like, just point a cruiser in light speed and just destroy the Imperial ship that has Vader and the Emperor on it. There you go. Over. But no, actually, they would survive. You know why? Because just like how Princess General Leia survives, she's out in space, gets blown out into it, and she does this, flying through space, floating through space back to the ship. They open the door, or she ends up figuring out how to open the door with the Force, and she survives. So maybe it's not that easy to kill a Jedi. All right, hold on. All right, there's just so much more. I think I'm gonna do like a whole movie talk, not just a review. Jokes, there's some funny jokes, there's some not so funny jokes, but it kind of disrupted the overall feel of where the movie was trying to take you emotionally, and it just kind of breaks it up. And I think I laughed maybe kind of or just smiled at some of these, but others is like, yeah, whatever. Social justice warrior is prevalent, but it's not. I hate this entire talk of it. They're not trying to force anything. They are. If you look at the women, they're pretty much perfect. There's no part where they make a mistake. The men, they are very fallible. They don't learn their lessons. So as far as female to male, yes, there is some of gender strength if you're a woman, but not a female, but not a male. There's entire story arc with minority characters. Finn is black, Rose is Asian, and Poe is Hispanic, or not, maybe not full. I don't know, but you know what I mean. But you know what? These guys are side characters. They're not forcing you down your throat that none of these minorities are very powerful. Who are the powerful ones? A white gal, a white guy, and an alien. That was probably a white alien. So yeah, they're not forcing down as like the minority stuff in the Star Wars. I don't see it as anything good or bad. They're just characters that happen to be that race. So idiots, just stop it. Yeah, you can kind of dig into it and see social justice warrior stuff into it. Disney's going to do that, but it doesn't take away the story. Alright, going fast. Yoda shows up. Hold on. Okay. Yoda shows up. Not Anakin Skywalker, not Ben Kenobi. He shows up as a Force ghost. He calls in lightning to destroy where the books are on that island. It's like, he's that powerful to do that at any time. Why doesn't he just do that to Snoke and just kill him off? So that's just something new, another plot hole. Snoke, as you can see how powerful he is, he's able to connect Okay, so this is what happens when you try to do a review during your lunch break at home while looking after. All right. So Yoda shows up. It's more powerful than ever, I guess. He, I don't know. Snoke ends up being so powerful. He's the one that's doing the communications between Rey and Kylo Ren across the galaxy. He's that powerful, but he can't find Luke. He's that powerful, and knows all about Kylo Ren, but doesn't do anything. He doesn't realize that Kylo Ren's moving that lightsaber or sensing the Force that he's trying to manipulate. He's monologuing. I guess that's his distraction from the Force. Just plays around with Rey, doesn't really kill her. He's the ultimate typical monologuing bad guy that gets killed very simply and unmeaningfully. Praetorians, they look kind of cool. Then they start, they're the martial artsy type of guards that can almost take down the two most powerful Force users. It's like if I were Rey or Kylo Ren, I would just Force push them or just crush them, just something with the Force instead. All it is just, yeah, I know. All it is just martial arts moves. Rey ends up knowing how to fight with the lightsaber really, really well from no real training at all. Man, I mean, if you watch it, just keep it at the surface level if you enjoy it. Captain Phasma shows up for a little while. Now, the cool thing about her armor was able to deflect a blaster pistol. That's how cool. So that's how important she is in some way to be able to have this special armor that's resistant to blaster fire. I mean, that's pretty big. If the First Order just made hundreds of armor like her, they could pretty much take over anything, because what's going to stop them? Blaster fire isn't going to stop them. And she gets beat up, and she ends up wanting to kill Finn. Then everything explodes. Everyone is pretty much killed except for Captain Phasma and a few troopers, and also, of course, Finn and Rose. So Finn fights her off hand to hand. And then BB-8 comes in and an AT-ST and blasts all the other stormtroopers out and ends up kind of saving Finn. And Finn just knocks her off and she ends up falling, but most presumably dead. But that's it. That's how. So anyone who wants to know, like, why is Captain Phasma so important? Well, she's not really. So at the end of this, let me just say, so search your feelings about this movie. What do you like about it? What don't you like about it? For me, at the end of this, I mean, I didn't really like The Force Awakens. I mean, there's just too much rehash. Not enough things to keep me interested. There were a few mysteries. It's like, okay, it's a start. Let's see where it goes. And this movie comes along and it doesn't go anywhere. There's a lead up to it, and so this movie is just kind of an action-packed Transformers-like movie. What's in store for Episode 9? I don't know. Is there anything kind of hint to that of what's going to happen in Episode 9? No. Do I feel like there's something at risk with Episode 9? No. You've got this small fleet able to just escape the First Order. Luke's no longer around, but I guess he could come back and just lightning strike, just like Yoda did. Rey could pretty much beat up Kylo Ren at any time, just like she did in Force Awakens. There's really nothing at risk, nothing new to kind of add. There's no tension, there's no gravitas, there's just you're kind of left empty. Yeah. So it's empty feeling, really, as far as, like, I don't even really want to watch it a second time. Any other Star Wars movie, like even The Force Awakens, I'll watch it a second time. I think I might have watched it maybe 4 times. So it was okay enough to watch 4 times. Rogue One, I maybe watched like 3 or 4 times, you know. But worst of the trilogy, Return of the Jedi, the original trilogy, I've still watched hundreds of times. The rewatchability of this movie, it's like, even if you did find Easter eggs in this movie, just like people found Easter eggs in The Force Awakens, just because of what this movie did that ended any continuity of The Force Awakens or its importance, it's like, what's the point? It's being like, all right, there's Easter eggs in Last Jedi, or maybe there's some show saying, hey, there's 20 Easter eggs that in The Last Jedi that you might not have seen. What does it matter? There's 20 or 40 Easter eggs in The Force Awakens, and the next movie's gonna come about and say, oh, yeah, that was an Easter egg. We're not gonna do anything with it. So it's wait 2 years, 1 year, 3 years, however long, you're not gonna really get any answers. And here's another thing: a lot of fans or current fans are gonna say, well, it's in the books. Just read the canon books. You'll find more information about stuff. These are movies. If you want to present something to an audience where they're supposed to get it because they're supposed to read a book, that's not how movies work. That's not how the Force works. That's not how Star Wars works. You just present it in the movie, and there you go. I don't want to say, hey, if you want to understand everything that happened in Star Wars, The Last Jedi, you need to read these 2 books. And these 2 books cost like $20 or something. And it's like, no. Anyways, that is it. The Last Jedi is a fun movie if you don't think about it at all. You know, just think of it as a Transformers movie in the Star Wars universe. There's probably a lot of things that I missed because I was in a hurry to get this out. I think I'll do one more thing, you know, where we actually have a discussion with everybody as far as our thoughts. But The Last Jedi, yeah, like I said, number 6 in my list. That's not very good. Okay, that's it. Thank you for watching my review. I'll talk to you guys later.